Picture this. It's 3 in the morning. You're driving down a completely empty road. No other cars, no pedestrians, no police for miles. You come to an intersection, and the light turns red. You stop. There is absolutely zero physical danger here. To a physicist, that light is nothing more than a specific wavelength of electromagnetic radiation shining through a piece of glass. But to your foot pressing the brake pedal, it is an inescapable command. The philosopher Boris Kriger calls this phenomenon walking around as a fluent illiterate. We flawlessly read the hidden codes of our culture, like the invisible rule demanding we stop at an empty intersection, without ever realizing we are reading at all. This small act of obedience shows how a sign can bypass physical necessity and move our bodies for us. We are navigating a hidden grammar of rules that shapes our behavior long before we ever stop to think about them. Now scale that empty intersection up to your entire daily life. We swim in an ocean of engineered meaning. Algorithms, political slogans, and corporate brands are meticulously designed as tiny machines to bypass your logic and strike directly at your gut. In his book, Reading the World as Text, Kriger offers a way out of this current. He takes the complex work of a Soviet-era scholar named Yuri Lotman, a man who spent his life analyzing the hidden grammar of culture, and strips away the dense academic jargon. What remains is a highly practical survival skill for navigating a digital age that constantly tries to tell you how to feel. Lotman viewed culture as a semiosphere, a continuous, invisible atmosphere of signs that wraps around human existence. It functions as a breathing system of making meaning that sustains us as naturally as water sustains a fish. A gold ring is just a loop of metal. A flag is just dyed cloth. On their own, isolated from everything else, these physical objects mean absolutely nothing. A sign only acquires meaning through its contrast and connection to other signs within a specific system. Red means stop, strictly because green means go. If meaning lives entirely in the relationships between things, then whoever controls that surrounding system of relations holds the power to dictate what everyday objects and actions mean to the rest of us. Every culture organizes itself around a highly regulated center. Institutions like the Académie Française sit here, issuing strict rules on proper language and behavior. The center tries to freeze meaning in place, keeping the culture orderly and predictable. But out on the edges lies the periphery. This is a messy, unregulated frontier where different languages and traditions collide. It lacks prestige, but this exact friction is where all true innovation, like the birth of jazz, is actively forged. Lotman learned this firsthand. On the western edge of the Soviet Empire, he watched authorities impose a rigid, official reality from the top down. Yet he noticed that actual meaning always leaked, breeding quietly in jokes, whispers, and the unpoliced margins of society. A culture survives through the constant tension between these two forces. The center provides the necessary memory and stability, while the disreputable periphery supplies the rebellion required to keep the system alive. We also participate in this system internally through what Lotman called auto-communication. Think of someone writing in a diary late at night, or quietly reciting a familiar prayer. By every standard measure, this seems pointless. The sender is sending a message to the only person who already knows exactly what the message contains. No new facts are being transmitted. But the goal isn't to inform. When you encode your own experiences into words and feed them back to yourself, you force a restructuring of your own mind. This raises a critical question. Why have those in power historically viewed this specific kind of literacy with such deep suspicion? The authority of a court, of a church, or a military parade relies heavily on an illusion. Once you recognize that a uniform or a massed formation is a constructed structure of signs, state power reveals itself as a choreographed performance. Semiotic literacy grants you a doubled vision. You can still feel the emotional thunder of the parade, but you simultaneously watch the deliberate machinery working to make you feel small. The danger is simple. When you learn exactly how cultural rules are built, you realize they can be taken apart. Blind obedience becomes impossible. Kriger makes it clear that Lotman's theories won't magically drain the ocean of digital media, political feeds, and branding we wade through every day. This ocean of meaning is here to stay. What this toolkit does is teach you how to read the currents, so that you are no longer swept along by them in the dark. Imagine standing at the edge of a dense forest. To a naive observer, the rustling leaves and cracking branches are just random noise. But if you stand there long enough, listening carefully, you realize the forest isn't making noise, it's making sense. It is speaking in an ancient, structured language. By learning to read the world as a text, we step out of the audience. We stop being passive spectators of culture and become conscious authors of our own reality.